Kayo released their RZR competitor, the S200, in May of 2023. Like the Polaris, it features an air-cooled 200cc class engine with a fully automatic CVT transmission and fully independent suspension at both ends. Where the S200 differs most significantly is in the sheer scale of the machine, with a much larger footprint and longer suspension travel. Can the Chinese-built kayo S200 provide serious competition for the Taiwanese-built RZR? Subscribe to UTV On Demand for our upcoming test to find out. For now, we'll take a deep dive into the S200's features and specifications to see what the Kayo has to offer. Our first impressions of the S200 are positive, with a modern, appealing styling that lies somewhere between a Segway and the Maverick X3, highlighted by LED tail and headlights with daytime running lights up front. You enter the machine through quarter doors, opening with push-button operated latches mounted on the interior. So far, they open and close without issue. Both seats are surprisingly well appointed, featuring automotive-style slider adjustment with a lever located under the front. Both seats can also be leaned forward via a lever on the side. Cut-and-sewn seat covers are typically a bragging point on high-end trim-level adult-sized machines that come standard on the S200. The seats feature pass-throughs for the factory-equipped 4-point harnesses, additional features typically reserved for higher-end adult-sized machines. The steering wheel is tilt-adjustable, but it does require loosening a bolt to adjust it. Next to it, you'll find a keyed ignition and pull-out choke. A well-lit digital instrument display with indicator lights is mounted center dash, along with a panel of switches that kill the engine, control the lights, horn, and other things. On the right side of the cockpit, there's a simple, well-designed grab handle for the passenger. On the floor between the occupants, there's a parking brake lever and gear selector that feels solid and well-built, along with dual cup holders that could be a touch deeper for riding in rough terrain. That's it for in-cab storage. One thing that's missing is a rear wall in the cabin, separating the occupants from the engine bay. The S200's rear cargo bed consists of a tubular steel bottom with a nylon cover that velcros in place, featuring a flip-up access point for the fuel cap. You might be able to tie items down to the bed, but on this youth sport machine, carrying cargo didn't seem to be given much consideration. Along with a standard whip flag for added safety, overall styling and interior design exceeded our expectations. Powering the S200 is a 196cc air-cooled 4-stroke engine with a 2-valve, single overhead cam head design. A substantial size oil cooler helps keep things running cool, in addition to a fan on the back side of the cylinder. There's also an air duct that helps channel air across the cylinder for additional cooling. Air and fuel are fed to the engine via a 29mm carburetor. Fuel is drawn from a 3.9-gallon fuel tank, offering 1.4 gallons more than the RZR. The top end is mated to a fully automatic continuously variable transmission, featuring forward, neutral, and reverse gears. The S200 features 2-wheel drive like its competitors. It's shaft-driven with a sizable-looking rear differential. Ventilation for the engine and CVT appear designed for serious off-roading. Air intake for the engine is mounted around shoulder height, behind and between the occupants. The airbox is located behind the driver's seat and provides simple toolless access to the foam filter for easy maintenance. Intake and exhaust for the transmission is mounted even higher, directly behind the seats outside of the cockpit. Our first impression, and that of our aftermarket partners who've seen the S200 up close, is that the chassis and suspension appear rather impressive and overbuilt for the engine's size, and in comparison to the competition. A substantial-looking steel frame mates up to a 6-point cage. The front of the car is protected by a steel bumper, but unfortunately, there is no skid plate protecting the underside of the machine, something that we feel should come standard. Accompanying its rack and pinion steering is dual A-arm suspension found at both ends, controlled by 5-way preload adjustable shocks. Suspension travel is substantial, with 10 inches of travel up front and 10.5 inches of travel out back, compared to the 7 inches found at both ends on the RZR. tire sizes are 22/710 front and 22/1010 rear, mounted on steel wheels. The tires look like a scaled-down version of the popular and versatile Maxxis Carnivores, but we wish the machine came with a square tire and wheel setup, like premium adult-sized machines. The S200's claimed dimensions are sizable for a youth side-by-side. It's 10.5 inches wider than the RZR 200 at 58.5 inches. It has a 9.8 inch longer wheelbase at 74.8 inches. Overall height is 2.6 inches lower at 56.9 inches. The S200 does give up a half inch of ground clearance at 9.5 inches. Its seat height of 16.1 inches is nearly 8.5 inches lower. Added up, the S200 has a claimed dry weight of 705.5 pounds, 34.5 pounds lighter than the RZR 200. On paper, the S200 should enjoy a serious handling advantage at higher speeds, with the feeling of stability magnified by its lower, more centered seating position. Slowing the S200 are hydraulic disc brakes found at all four corners. We're happy to see that it appears Kayo is using steel-braided brake lines standard. Aftermarket support is coming online for the Kayo S200. Our machine arrived outfitted with a Super ATV front and rear windshield, and a metal roof replacing the standard soft top. To increase power, Fuel Customs has developed an intake and filter system. DASA Racing is also developing an aftermarket exhaust. Kayo support racer Luke Strickland is already having success racing the S200. He uses a GY6 scooter clutch kit that also fits the RZR 200 to help him get the most out of the engine's available power. Sponsored by the Speed Shop, Luke is currently testing aftermarket pistons, camshafts, and stiffer valve springs that may come to market. It's also rumored that premium aftermarket shocks are currently being developed. Very soon, we'll be putting the Kayo S200 to the test. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Learn more about the Kayo S200 and their full line of side-by-sides, ATVs, and dirt bikes at ridekayo.com.